Well, I'm at it again, making another video on a custom build power cable for the R720 riser. And this time what I'm going to be making is a riser to 8-pin PCI Express cable. And I don't believe I mentioned it before in the videos, but I did realize that the pin out for the R720 riser, the Cisco C240 M3, and the Poweredge R910 is PCI Express. So you could make this cable using a PCI Express 8-pin connector on both sides. There is one caveat though, where if you use a PCI Express 8-pin connector on both sides, on that pin there, which is technically pin 8, top right one when you're looking at it, has a little notch. So you would have to shave that notch off to plug it into the riser, because the riser on the R720 and the connector for the C240 M3 Cisco server doesn't have a notch in the connector for that. If you do cut the notch, my recommendation is only cut it on one side. With this cable, it's not like you can plug this in backwards, but if you were to maybe forget what this cable is designed for and you tried using it with a Tesla video card, then you have the problem where you're shorting the 12 volts to ground. So just out of a caution, basically, I would make sure that at least one end of your custom cable is going to have that appropriate notch for PCI Express 8-pin if you're going to use it for PCI Express 8-pin purposes. I did find that power supplies that had a single PCI Express 8-pin connector wasn't very common, so despite wanting to do the same connector on both sides, I wasn't able to do that. I'm going to use a APS 12 volt cable for the riser side of things. I did come up with some other cables that I could have used. Only reason I didn't was their 20 gauge wire. I couldn't find a wire size chart for 20 gauge, but with 18 gauge at 12 volts is basically seeing anywhere from 10 to 30 amps is what this was capable of managing on 3 feet. This cable here is going to be around 15 inches though, so the PCI Express 8-pin standard is only rated for 150 watts, which is 12.5 amps at 12 volts. So I'm fairly confident that this 18 gauge wire will be perfectly fine. I don't remember what the Teslas have going to them for wire size, but I think it was 18 as well. Might have been 16, but you know, this stuff it should be good enough. This is going to be a little bit tricky because I want to get this sleeving on there. I have this stuff here, which is 3 times shrink, heat shrink, so this will shrink down to 1/3 of its size. This should be the right size to go over the sleeving in the cables. I'll find out. This is the first time using this. And this stuff also has like a hot glue inside of it, so it'll kind of ooze out and create a seal, and that'll hold this in place. Plus, hopefully I'll be able to write on this. I chose white and green, mostly because, unfortunately, I'm team green. I like NVIDIA. So, the white side's going to go to the riser. This side's going to go to the video card. Just a little color differentiation to make it easier to know which end goes where. Plus, I'm going to write on it. So, I'm having a little bit of trouble here because I got to get this heat shrink down on, or not this heat shrink, I'm sorry, this braided tubing over on one side and then pull it back far enough to keep it out of the way. But I also want to make sure everything's wired up correctly for the wires, because the color code on this obviously is not the same. And I believe these 3 pins are the plus 12 volt. Oops. I just noticed I made a mistake when I cut these. Huh. Well, that is very unfortunate. Hmm. Oh wait, no, I didn't. All right, good. I had to double check that for a second. What's the saying? Measure once, cut 5 times, something like that. So yeah, this will be kind of fun. Um, Fairly confident this will work. There's no reason why it shouldn't. I've had good luck so far with the cables I've made, other than some build quality issues and getting there. I'm hoping this one will turn out good enough for me to be confident in selling it. But yeah, so I think I'm gonna pause this recording and then start recording me putting it together, and I'm just gonna speed that footage up because no one wants to watch me slowly put a cable together. Well, I'd like to say the hardest part is done. All my joints are made, heat shrinks laid out. I need to heat shrink over these joints, and then I had difficulties. I wanted to pre-insert this so I could get everything in place, But what would happen is I'd get to the point where it maximum, it'd bunch up at the maximum it could support, and then just go shooting over the end of the wires. So it would have been easier if one end was longer than the other, but since these were both about the same length, because this one started short in the first place, that didn't work. And this should be about 15 inches, yeah, a little short. I think this still should be plenty long. I was making the EPS 12 volt cables I was making around 17.5 inches, but I think I can get away with this being a little shorter. We'll find out. So, do another time lapse. I'm going to do the heat shrink next. Alright, so the heat shrinking is done. Some of this heat shrink is a different thickness than the other stuff, so even though it doesn't look like it's fully shrunk, it should be. Now, the fun part. Also, I'm going to move this out of the way. Still hot. And yes, I am aware. I'm setting a heat gun down on cardboard. I like to live excitingly. Oh, so the tricky part now is I have to get this braid over one of the connectors, and then I have to get the other heat shrink under it. Over this braid, I mean. So getting over the connectors isn't too bad. Just bunch it up, and it luckily expands enough to get stuck. Oh no, I'm cursed. There we go. It's kind of tricky. This isn't the best way to do it, but due to some bad choices in cable lengths, this is something I'm just kind of forced to do. Has to be done. Well, it doesn't have to be, I guess, but I like how it looks better, so, you know, it makes me happy. This last little bit's the hardest part. There we go. So now, I have to get the white stuff out. Oh, alright, that actually works out pretty good. I was really worried. I thought that was going to be a huge pain. Alright, and then obviously this one, go over here. So, I gotta do a couple things here. I want to figure out how this places out. I want to kind of have it nice and centered, not that you'll be able to tell under the heat shrink. It's actually a little too long. That's a bummer. It's always something. I even had to trim it down after fraying the ends. I kind of want this tight over the cable, so I'm going to cut some of this back with some scissors. Also, when I started soldering these together, I realized I cut some of the wires the wrong length, so I had to cut them all off and then cut them to size, basically. I think that'll be better. Let's see here. I'm going to put these in the middle, and then I'm going to stretch this out. And hopefully, I don't want it to be up against the connectors. I just want it to be a little bit before. Yeah, that'll be perfect. I like that. So I'll put a little zip tie over the end to kind of, actually, you know what? I want that just a tiny bit shorter. Alright. I don't want it right up against the connectors, but I also want to be the right amount of spacing where I can zip tie over it and have the heat shrink overlap. So yeah, let's get that spacing right, and then we'll do a little zip tie. These tiniest little zip ties. Came with some patch panels I bought from Monoprice. They're kind of useless, except for projects like this. Oh, well, don't even have to cut it. It just pulled too hard and it broke. Seems to be okay. It actually needs to be further back. I need that to be right there. I want that to be able to bend, so I'm gonna have to, I think I'm gonna take it back further like that. Yeah, so I don't want the heat shrink all the way up there because I want to have a little flex, which means this other end I'm going to cut even more. I want that to be about right there. Stretch down all the way. I'm going to take probably another inch off of that, even though I've already probably taken an inch off of it. Alright, just doing a little cutting over my trash can. See if I can get that spaced out better. Yeah, right there. I'm really happy with this. I guess, you know, the one thing I should do before, grab my chair, it's going to take some time. Before I do this heat shrink, this stuff was expensive, so I don't want to use it up and then find out I messed something up. I want to just make sure I wired these correctly. So we'll go through. This might be difficult to do. I think if I hold it down like this, rubber band's in my way. Alright, first pin matches. Second pin. It's hard to space these out. Second pin is good. Third pin matches. I think I just did the fourth pin. We'll do it again because I messed up and lost track. Alright, fourth pin matches. Gotta be a better way to hold this. A little stiffer than I thought it'd be. Alright, pin 5. So far I'm happy with how this turned out, so I'm probably going to sell this because I already have an appropriate power cable for PCI Express power that I use for my server, or well, servers. Nice. So yeah, this will probably be going on eBay. Alright, all 8 pins are good. I can't say the price is going to be good because this is custom built and took me time to make this. But this video is more about showing you how to make your own than selling the products, so hopefully this will be handy. And you don't even have to really go to the lengths I'm going to here. I'm just making this really nice for two reasons. I want to, because I want to have a little pride in my workmanship, and I plan on selling it at this point. But honestly, if you're doing this for yourself, you could just as easily make this where you just heat shrink the wire joints in the middle and then just leave everything else loose. But I want to make this look nice. So I'm going to heat shrink these ends off camera. I'll probably wash my hands first because I've noticed the bigger pieces will take your fingerprints since they have more surface area. And then I'll be back with the finished product. Alright, well, I'm in a different part of the office now. Right here is a Poweredge R720 server. And here's the cable. I had to do a little bit of surgery on the heat shrink. Cut off about 1/2 inch from the back. I have a feeling this is still not going to work. It's a little too long. I should have probably made this overall, but that'd be about 1 inch instead of I think that's like 2 inches. I didn't measure. I just kind of cut what I thought looked good. This heat shrink worked pretty good. It took a lot of heat to get it down to size, but that's not really anyone's fault. It's just the properties of this particular heat shrink since it's so thick and it has a hot glue inside of it, as you can see. If the camera focuses, you can see the texturing of the braiding when it was over that. I guess it would have been that way, but yeah. So I had to cut a slit in this and then cut around it to kind of peel this off. I did do a test fit off camera, which I'm going to do another test fit, I guess, on camera now. And the heat shrink I put on the riser side is definitely hurting me because it makes it really difficult to place. So it should be close enough. And this particular card here is a GTX 770. Bad one, unfortunately. I damaged it. It only has 2 functional lanes now because those bypass capacitors are important. So it's not the best fit though. Oh, should probably zoom in. There we go. Not the best fit. I'll pull the GPU out. I thought I had a better angle on that. That is my mistake. You kind of have a sharp angle here, which I don't like. I mean, it fits. It could definitely be better. But we'll put your card in there. Lock it into place. Everything's where it should be. I think that, can't tell with the camera in the way. Yeah, see, that's going to be a problem. It's up against the capacitors. It's resting on stuff. So what I'm going to have to do is the same thing I do with my Tesla power cable, which is that. Kind of fold it over, which works, but it's going to be a little bit of a problem depending on the placement of your video card's 8-pin. So like here, this works out. It's a little tight. I should have made it longer. This was my mistake for messing up when I cut the wires. But that would work, assuming this particular card only needed a single 8-pin power connector. Just feeling under it there. Yeah, it's not hitting anything. It's not great. Oops, I unplugged this. What I might end up doing, just to salvage this cable, I really don't want to do it, but I think I might end up just cutting this off completely. We'll see. Something I'll sleep on. I did, if I can hold it in my hands, of course, and get it in frame. Focus. I did label the heat shrink. This is the GPU side and this is the riser side. If I end up cutting this off, then well, I'll fall back on the fact that this PCI Express 8-pin connector is keyed, so you can't plug this end into the riser because of that keying. it just won't work. You could maybe force it in violence, but really you'd have to modify that little piece of plastic, cut it off. Focus. Hard to show because it's the wrong color for lighting and everything, but you'd have to cut off that piece of keying if you want to plug it in the riser side. So this is kind of the good way to design the cable if you want to make it more idiot proof. It'll prevent somebody from using the cable. Get it in frame. Zoom back out. It'll prevent somebody from using this cable with a Tesla card since it's not going to be wired correctly. So yeah, still some improvements to do. Like I said, I'm probably going to sleep on this a little and figure out what I want to do about this heat shrink. As much as I hate to do it, I might end up cutting it back some more. I'm going to lose the writing on there for riser, but I think if I were to cut it back ½ inch this way also, that might be the solution to my problem. But yeah, that was an overly long and complicated video on how to splice wires together, basically. But hopefully other people maybe will get inspired. The only thing I had to buy for this was the tools I used and then the heat shrink. These are just wires I cut off power supplies. EPS 12 volt and a PCI Express 6+2 pin. That gives me up to 8 pins of PCI Express power. So, thanks for watching.